Welcome to Australia again.
Thank you, Andrew. It's good to be here.
Yeah, all the way from Florida?
Yes.
How long was the flight?
Well, the flight was about 20 hours altogether.
Were you awake that whole time?
No, I was lucky. Jennifer and I got about 8 hours of sleep on the plane, which was a first for us.
That is
so
good.
We're feeling really, really good
I always
today.
say flying this way is a little easier than going back.
It is for me. I'm not looking forward to going back.
Well, we're glad you're here down in our Melbourne area,
Thank you.
we're grateful that you're going to be presenting. Now, you work with Florida Hospital and the larger Adventist Health Systems West. Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, Florida Hospital is part of Adventist Health System. We have 8 campuses in the city of Orlando. We have about 25 hospitals in Florida. And Adventist Health System, which we're really fortunate to be a part of, is the largest Protestant healthcare system on the planet.
Wow.
So it really gives us an opportunity to really take the healing message of Christ to people. On our campus alone, among our 8 campuses alone, and we have 18 clinics in Orlando, we see 1 million patients a year.
1 million?
1 million patients a year. And our mission at the hospital is extending the healing ministry of Christ. So it really gives us a chance to try to bring healing hope to people's lives. It's really an amazing, wonderful work to be a part of.
Now, it sounds like this is kind of a different hospital. You're not just seeing patients coming in and out, but you guys help teach them about a better way to live.
We do. Our flagship campus in Orlando is Celebration Health. And at Celebration Health, they've taken the Creation Health principles, which are whole person health and wellness principles, and they include those in the pre-work, the healing that's going to be done, whether it's operations or whatever it might be. So they include those principles in the pre-work during their stay with us, and as they leave, they are fully versed in the Creation Health principles, and it's turning into a demonstration hospital.
How do you find the patients responding to that kind of input?
You know, they are very positive. Overwhelmingly, the response to them is they're so grateful that we took an interest in more than just their physical body. And most of them, I'd say over 90%, are so happy that we're there to help spiritually encourage them through prayer and also help them see the mind-body connection of why maybe they're in the situation they're in and some simple things they can do to be healthier and happier.
Now, you mentioned a whole person paradigm. Kind of describe that a little bit. What does that mean?
The whole person paradigm would be that there's more to health than just diet and exercise. You would include the mental portion, the spiritual, the social aspect. Oftentimes, we've just talked about exercise and nutrition, but deeply impacting our wellness, because wellness is more than just the absence of disease, is our walk with God, relationships. Our outlook on life is huge. I'll be talking about that on Monday, and I think it's the most important one of all. So we really take, we've expanded the traditional 8 principles of health that we've been teaching as Adventists, and we've broadened them a little bit to include the whole person.
So that's the acronym CREATION then?
Creation.
Okay,
Yes.
so we'll be going through each of these pretty much throughout the weekend. Excellent. Now, on a personal note, you mentioned you traveled over with Jennifer. That's not normal for you.
No, it's not. Jennifer and I rarely get a chance to travel together. She's gone 150 days a year, and I'm traveling as well. So it's always a treat when we get a chance to travel together and do things like this.
All righty, so here's the big question.
All right.
What's it like to be in the shadow of somebody probably more popular than you are?
Well, you know, I'm used to it after 16 years. I am referred to as the singer's husband. That's my title. And now that we have a son who's going on 5, I'm either the singer's husband or Garrison's father. You know, I don't have my own identity. I know what it's like to be the invisible man, but I'm okay with that because I like lurking in the shadows anyway.
It's
just
not a problem.
fine.
Well, we're glad you're here. We're looking forward to your presentation. God bless you.
Thank you, Andrew. I appreciate it. I have some things I have to practice before I get started just to make sure I know what's going on. It's actually good day, mates, right? All right, good day, mates. That's good. And so I want to say that Jennifer and I have had heaps and heaps of fun since we've been here in Australia, and everyone has been so kind and gracious and warm. And I tell you something else, not only has this been one of my favorite places to visit, but it's even more so now because something interesting happened at a restaurant in Melbourne just a night or 2 ago. We were eating, and believe it or not, somebody recognized me. I don't know, and they didn't recognize Jennifer. Makes no sense to me. I don't think I'm in enough trouble where the authorities would recognize me over here, but they recognized me. So I think even now, Australia is now my #1 place on the planet because I'm just no longer the singer's husband. I'm actually having my own identity. Actually, someone mentioned it to us as we were walking out of the restaurant that they recognized, and I don't know why they recognized me. I didn't want to go find out either because, you know, what you don't know won't hurt you. But it's good to be here this morning. We have a great set of presentations lined up on health. I'm so glad you're here. This morning is going to be the most intense of the 3 mornings. I've kind of gone back and forth wondering if I should tell you what my intention is in the next hour that we have together, but I'm going to tell you, my intention is to fully immerse you in the health message with this 21st century spin. I have way more information that I'm going to bring to you than I should be bringing to you, because I want to overwhelm you with information to get you to the point for the last 5 or 6 minutes that we have together that it'll be a meaningful time of reflection for you. So I know that the ushers passed out an outline for you to take some notes in. Did everybody get this outline on choice? If you don't have the outline, raise your hand and the ushers will make sure. Well, I have 300 outlines, and I think that'll be enough for the audience here. So everyone would like to have choice, to have this choice outline. If you don't, raise your hand and the ushers will make sure you get it. And as I go through the presentation today, I'll lead you through some note-taking. There are a few blanks in here I'll make sure that you have filled in. There's also a place on the back to take notes. Now, I want to let you know that I'm going to give you too much information this morning to take a lot of notes. So what I'm hoping and praying will take place here is that the Holy Spirit will prompt your heart and prompt your minds to a specific thing that might stand out amongst all the information you're going to get, amongst all the heaps and heaps and heaps of information you're going to get, and that you will take that as a sign from the Holy Spirit that perhaps that's an area of your life that God would like you to focus on with regards to your health. So if you try to take notes on everything I'm going to share, you're going to be frustrated and you're going to want to throw me under the bus. I don't know what the Australian phrase is for that. So just relax and try to pick up on what the Holy Spirit has for your life with regards to this topic and issue. There are 2 things I want you to keep in mind today as we go through this presentation. One, think about it personally, how it might apply to your life. But secondly, I need to let you know that Creation Health is an outreach seminar that churches use to run in their communities to build relationships and earn the trust of the people in their communities. And it's working quite well in areas in the United States where traditional outreach methods have not worked well. And I'll share some stories, I think, Monday with some exciting things that are happening along those lines. So think about, firstly, how this could affect your life, and then secondly, how you might, as a church leader, use this if you think it's appropriate and could work effectively in your territory over here. Think of how you might be able to use this to reach your community and make an impact. Because my opinion and my perception might not be accurate, is that both in the United States and in Australia, people are perceiving our church or the church to be less and less and less relevant. And I think this might be a tool that can begin changing and shifting that perspective to the people that God has called us to reach with His message. This is an easy way to reach them. So there's a personal application, there is a church application with regards to how a church might reach people in its community with this material. Okay, I think that's enough housekeeping and enough introductions. I know that Savetta has already kindly prayed. I want to pray again because there's a lot that's going to happen here in the next 50 or so minutes, and I want to make sure that God really can capture our hearts and our minds, that He'll be able to advance whatever agenda He has here among us this morning, okay? So let's pray. Father in heaven, I thank You so much for making us Your family. Although we're continents apart, Jennifer and I in America and the good folks here in Australia, through the blood of Christ, we're a family, and one day we not only will be face-to-face together all the time, but we'll be face-to-face with You throughout eternity. So Lord, please bless us this morning as we talk about the message You've given us that is so vibrant and dynamic and transformational, that not only will we see how it can apply to our life, but how You might use us to take this to change other people's lives that You want to see in Your family before Jesus returns. Is our prayer in Your name. Amen. Now, I have a little bit of a vision problem, which I might talk about later, probably will talk about later. So if you see me kind of struggling between the screens and monitors, it's because I have a hard time seeing. I do want to talk about it later, but I'll do more. Let's get into Creation Health, though. I want to ask you a question. Creation Health is about living life to the fullest, and I want to ask you a poll. In Florida, of all the things that you think could cause young men, 25 to 34-year-old men to die, which of these do you think it might be? I actually accidentally advanced it, so you know the answer. But diabetes, cancer, suicide, or stroke? Suicide, you saw the answer. Now, this is bad news. It's better news than what we had just 4 years ago. And I'm going to use the United States as a case study this morning because I'm of the conviction that what happens in the U.S. finds a way, for better or worse, to ripple its way across the planet. And the second thing I know, it doesn't matter if you're in the United States or in Australia or if you're in Asia, people are people, and the same issues drive us. They might express themselves differently, but they're the same. Now, this suicide rate among these young men is bad news, but it's better news than just a few years ago. Just 4 years ago in the state of Florida, with men ages 65 years old and older, suicide was the second leading cause of death. When you stop and think of all of the diseases that take the lives of people in that age category, suicide should not be up there. So our state has done a lot of work, and now that is no longer the case for that age category, but unfortunately, it's hitting this young group of people. And it's actually a trend I see happening in the States, not just to Florida, but suicide is becoming one of the leading causes of death among the youngest people in our country. In fact, for kids ages 14 to 25, or 14 to 23, it's the third leading cause of death. Now, this is all going to make sense here in a little bit. There's more to the health message than just diet and exercise. But think about it, these men think that the only choice to end the pain in their life is to actually take their life. And I juxtapose that to what Jesus Christ said in John 10:10, I've come that you might have life and have it what? More abundantly. But what we often don't quote in that text is the other part that says, but the thief comes to do what? Kill, steal, and destroy. So what I see happening in the United States, and I think it's happening all over, is you have this conflict. You have this controversy of lifestyles. You have the lifestyle of Christ that brings peace, grace, hope, and abundant life in all of its forms. Then you have the lifestyle of hopelessness and helplessness that makes people feel like they are stuck in their situation. And it fills them with such depression and discouragement that they do all that they can to just numb the pain from their situation. And in numbing the pain in their life, they're actually creating habits that are leading to compromising the quality of their life and leading to premature death. There is a conflict in lifestyle. And there's never been a time on this planet when this church has had the opportunity to make such a significant difference in the hearts and minds of people who are searching for a way out of their hopeless, helpless lifestyle. You have the devil who's trying to keep them in the corner, and you have the message and grace of Christ who's coming in and liberating them from that pain and oppression. Make sense? So that's what's happening. There's more to the health message than just diet and exercise. We've been focusing on that for a long time, but there's much more. But before we get into that, let me ask you, do you think the typical lifestyle in America creates disease or health? It creates disease. I mean, it's a no-brainer. And I think that this is happening more and more. I will say that in Australia, I've seen more active people here than I've seen anywhere I've visited. So I'm encouraged. But I want to show you what's been happening in my country for the last 20 years. I'm going to go through these slides really fast because I want you to see the progression of what's been happening. And how you read this map is very easy. You see the light-colored states, or the lighter the color, the better statistically things are in that states or in those states with regards to obesity. The deeper and darker the color, the worse it is. Okay? So let's just go through starting in 1986. Let me get down here and read since I can't see. For instance, the darkest blue color on this map in 1986, 10 to 14% of the population of those states were obese. So you see how to read it? Okay, because I'm not going to keep squatting down and reading it. Now, as we go through, year by year, I want you to tell me, is it getting better or worse in my country? Is it getting a little bit worse or a lot worse? New color added in 97. See what happened? I don't know what happened in 1998 to 1999, but do you see? It almost swallowed up the complete eastern half of the United States. And that new color added is more than 20% of the population of those states in 1999 were classified as obese. A new color added, just so you know, that's Mississippi, and that's probably the least healthy state in the United States. Thank goodness, Evidence Health System and the Gulf States Conference, which includes Mississippi and Alabama, they have started running a Creation Health pilot in 16 of their churches. So we see some change happening, but it's not fast enough. In 2002, 2003, 2004, see that big jump between 2003 and 2004? Something scary in 2005 happened. What was it? New color was added. The purple, over 30% of the populations in those states were classified as obese. That's 2007, 2008, 2009, and the last one I have is 2010. Now, I'm not a scientist, I'm not a clinical person, but looking at that map, what I would have to say is that there's an epidemic on our hands, at least in the United States. If that was H1N1, if that was, chickenpox, smallpox, if it was anything other than that, the alarm bells would be ringing in the United States of America. There's an epidemic taking place, which is a part of a larger conversation in our country. I'm not sure I'll share it here, but something has to be done. But I want to share, and this is going to sound critical, and I don't want it to be as critical as it's going to sound. There's an opportunity here, all right? But what it tells me is, with the health message that we've had, and I love our health message, with the health message that we've had and been sharing for all these years, we've not been doing enough or have not been effective enough to turn it back. Now, that can be a little bit of a reality moment for us to realize that there's more work to do. But the positive spin on it, the positive outlook is there's a golden opportunity here for us to reach into these communities, reach into your communities with the message of health, and make a difference by starting to answer the questions people are asking when it comes to how to live and be happy. We know what it takes. We have the answers to those questions. So there's an opportunity like never before for our church. Okay, I want to keep going with a PowerPoint here. Just so you know, when we're talking about obesity, obesity is if your body mass index is 30 or higher. You can see how to find out what your BMI is. If you measure your adult height in relation to, you can read it there, in kilograms, you come up with your BMI. That's the formula. If you're overweight, you have a BMI of 25 to 29.9. If you're obese, it's 30 or higher. So I want to show you these three. This amazes me. This blows me away. In 1990, 10 states had a prevalence of obesity less than 10%, and no state had a prevalence of 15%. In 2000, no state had a prevalence of obesity less than 10%. 23 states had a prevalence between 20 and 24, and no state had a prevalence of 25, and there are only 50 states, okay? In 2010, no state had a prevalence of obesity less than 20%. 36 states had a prevalence equal to or greater than 25%. And look in the red. 12 of these states had a prevalence equal to or greater than 30%. See how it's changing. In fact, you can look at the maps starting back where we started to 1990 to 2010. It's only getting worse. And you can see why there's a raging healthcare debate in my country. It's because almost 70% of the population is overweight or obese, and it's only getting worse. And I'm going to show you some diabetes trends, but before I do that, on the plane ride over, I happened to get a newspaper, and this was Thursday, March 29th, and this comes from the Journal of Cancer. They published last Wednesday. Paper came out Thursday, they published a study on Wednesday, and they said this. They said, basically, of all of the cancer in the United States of America, and those deaths equal about 585,000, 1/3 is caused from tobacco products. The other third is caused from obesity. And they said the cancers that are on the rise in our country among men are kidney cancer and pancreatic cancer. In women, it's uterine cancer. And what they're finding is the obesity is altering hormone and insulin levels, causing chronic hypertension, which is contributing to damaging inflammatory agents. And it's only getting worse. And they said, what we can do is simply by diet and exercise and losing weight, we can start turning back these horrible statistics on cancer. I share it with you because although this is talking about United States statistics, I think you probably could extrapolate that when it comes to obesity for people here in this country, that there is a connection then as well between pancreatic cancer, kidney cancer, and uterine cancer. It's a big deal, and we are very, very, very heatedly debating this in our country. And I look at those charts, those states, and I think to myself, you know, speaking as a father, I would like to have my son have access to quality health care when I'm no longer around to help, if time lasts. But I know this, looking at those states and what's been happening in our country and what's likely going to start happening in other countries, as I see Kentucky Fried Chickens, McDonald's, you know, Hungry Jack's, I can go on and on down the list. We could, in our country, give free health care to every single person. And if we did that, would it change what's happening on those maps? It would not change what's happening on those maps. What we need is to have a new sense of personal responsibility of taking charge for our life. Because a pill, a surgery, an operation is not going to make us healthy. And more than that, wellness and health is more than just the absence of disease. We had the Surgeon Generals come and speak to our hospital about 16 months ago, and they said, we've got to do something in this country. And they're recognizing the Seventh-day Adventist medical work in Florida. They actually gave us an award which should make all of us proud as Seventh-day Adventists about how well our health work is doing. And they said 2 generations ago, we were spending in our country 4% of our gross national product on health care. Last generation, it was 8%. This generation is 16%. And they said it's doubling like clockwork every generation. So next generation is go from 16 to 32. 2 generations from now, it'll be from 32 to 64. 3 generations from now, it goes from 64 to 128% of our gross national product. And you can see that that is not sustainable at all. So we're trying to figure things out, and you're not going to see this go away, and it's actually in the Supreme Court at the level right now being decided, and I have a hunch the Supreme Court's probably going to throw it out from what I can tell, but I don't know. We'll see. Because this is my opinion. This is an op-ed. This is not part of my presentation, but since I raised the issue, I think the Supreme Court's probably going to throw it out because the justices don't like Obama, and Obama doesn't like the justices. So I think they're going to show who's in charge when it comes to that whole thing. Whatever. All right, but let's go on. We just looked at obesity trends. Let's look at diabetes trends. Starting in 1990. Now, you tell me as we go through this if it's getting better or getting worse. It is getting worse. Is it getting a little worse or a lot worse? A lot worse. You see new colors added. And these states with the yellow, greater than 10% of the whole population was diagnosed with diabetes. These are just people who know they have it. There are millions more who don't. That's the latest statistic I had on diabetes. But right now we can say that 8 of the 10 leading causes of death are lifestyle related. Most likely to kill us today are high blood pressure, cancer, stroke, coronary artery disease, things that are internal. 100 years ago, things most likely to kill us were like the plague, the flu, epidemics. But these days, it's things that are happening as a result of how we live. A lifestyle disease is characterized by a group of habits that create premature death or compromised quality of life. At the end of the day, what we can say is people are dying from the inside out. They're dying because of how they've chosen to live. Although cigarette smoking is a leading cause of death, tobacco is a leading cause of death in our country, obesity is a close second, and the experts there say it's soon going to overtake tobacco as a leading cause of death in the United States of America, obesity. Now, the good news is, if we're dying from within because of how we live, are we in charge? Are we in control? Is there something we can do to change that? If it's not happening from without, but within, is there something within our power to make it better? Absolutely. We have control, we have choice, we can make our situation better. And I've just talked about these slides. I want to get to some other stuff, so I'm going rather quickly. Another question. Using the United States as a case study, and I want to show how this applies over here. The most important slide I've seen in the last 20 years, I'm going to show you in just a few minutes. In the United States, how many people do you think are estimated to die in my country every year as a result of lack of exercise and poor nutrition. 50,000, 100,000, 200,000, 400,000. 400,000 people. What's the population of Melbourne? 4 million. So 10%. You know, if there was some disaster or some, I don't think you have a problem with terrorism over here, which is a good thing. If you had a terrorist strike, take out 10% of the population of Melbourne, 400,000 people, I think your country would be up in arms, would be terrified, would be alarmed, and would do something to fix it. In my country, 400,000 people are dying every year who don't have to die, and we just kind of like, yawn it away, just kind of get sleepy. We don't do anything about it. We talk about it, we don't do anything about it. We have to go deeper. There is something driving this that's more than just exercise and diet. This is what I've been trying to get to that's going to help all of us here when it comes to this, even in our own personal lives. We have to go deeper. What we've been doing as a church is we've been throwing solutions at habits. Stop drinking, stop smoking, stop overeating. That's fine, but that's not going to work permanently. We need something more effective. I'm going to show you the most important slide I've seen in the last 20 years. It's right here. The outside of this slide is, again, using the United States as a case study. I'm going to show you the middle, but it's blank right now in a minute, and I hope the lights come on in our minds and we see what opportunity we have here and how this applies to Australia as well. Outside the perimeter of that box, you see the 10 leading causes of death. Now, since just recently, it's been updated. I've not updated it, but you'll see in your top right-hand corner it says septicemia, blood infections were the 10th leading cause of death in America. That's no longer the case. As within just the last few weeks, suicide now is the 10th leading cause of death among all age groups in the United States. I think suicide's a big deal here too, from what I'm reading and putting together and gathering. So suicide is on the list now. So you have the 10 leading causes of death on the outside of that perimeter. On the inside square, you have the lifestyle habits that are creating the 10 leading causes of death, if that makes sense. Now, there is something driving those habits. We typically throw solutions at the habits, but there's something that's causing those habits in the first place. What is it? Because if we can get to that, then we as a church can minister to people in a more effective way, a deeper way, and we can bring the healing grace of Jesus Christ into their lives in a way that maybe they've not experienced yet, and begin pushing back this lifestyle of hopelessness and helplessness. So what is driving these 10 leading causes of death? Well, I'll show you right here. There are 8 root causes that are causing people to make habits that are leading to the 10 leading causes of death. And I would suggest to you, whether it's here in Australia or back in the United States, these 8 root causes, I bet you there's a lot of similarity. I'd say they're the same ones. So whatever your 10 leading causes of death they are, and whatever your habits are, I would say that these 8 root causes are driving them. And they are. And I can't see, and I'll tell you about my vision in a minute. You have external and internal stress, anger and frustration, low self-esteem or self-worth, economic disparity, hopelessness and emotional despair, lack of information or education, meaningless existence, powerlessness, or loneliness. Let me ask you, does our church, does Jesus Christ and his message have anything to say about those 8 things right there? Absolutely. You know, you don't have to be a rocket scientist, you don't have to be a brain surgeon, you don't have to be a doctor or a nurse or a physician's assistant or anybody like that to begin bringing healing into a person's life when you realize that the frustrations that they're dealing with are lack of purpose, lack of meaning, anger, loneliness, isolation. We have a message that brings healing to all of those pain points in a person's life. And I find that tremendously exciting. And I don't care who you are, I don't care what you believe, I don't care what lifestyle you live, whether you are, super religious person or whether you are an agnostic or an atheist, those 8 emotional root causes, those are something that are universal. Everybody deals with them. I don't know how they express themselves in this country, but just knowing that those are active in people's lives gives us an inside track, gives us an advantage in how to minister to them. It gives us an advantage in the sense of, now that we know that they're being driven by these 8 root emotional causes, the advantage is we begin to understand the questions that they are asking. So we begin answering the questions they're asking. And when we begin answering the questions that they are answering, guess what? They begin trusting us. They begin wanting to have a relationship with us. We become credible. They start taking the journey with us. And they'll be open to other nuggets of truth that we might want to share with them along the way. Does that whole process make sense? Okay, thank you. I want to make sure I'm just not talking to myself. Okay. I want to talk about Creation Health. Creation Health is 8 glimpses of a better life. Let me show you what they are. It's an acronym that stands for choice, rest, environment, activity, trust in God, interpersonal relationships, outlook, and nutrition. I want to tell you share a story of how this came about. It's actually kind of fascinating. You never would have guessed it in a million years. I wouldn't have. Creation Health is, yes, a 21st century twist on the Adventist health message, but it goes broader than the Adventist health message, because our message typically has been, fresh air, pure water, sunlight, exercise. We've gone beyond that and expanded it, and those actually are in the Creation Health message, but they are just a component. They're not the be-all, end-all, because there's more. You can eat well and you can exercise, but if you don't have relationships, you're going to see the risk factors in your life as a result of not having relationships. Sunday, we're going to talk about trusting God. You might eat well, you might get sunshine, you might drink pure water, but if you don't have a relationship with God, you're not well. You're not healthy. So we've gone the whole person route when it comes to teaching people about health. Now, Creation Health came about, actually, in the mid-90s, and I have to share this with you. I think you'd like to know. Have you heard of Disney World? Okay. Disney World is a pretty big player in Florida and actually the United States. And our hospital has a good relationship with Disney World. Now, Florida Hospital has been in Orlando since 1908. So it's not our first day on the job when it comes to health. Well, Disney decided it was going to create a community called Celebration. Have you heard of Celebration? Probably some of you have. What they wanted in that community, that planned community of Celebration, was they wanted to have a hospital. Now, as soon as everybody found out they wanted to have a hospital, you had every hospital put in its bid to become Disney's hospital in Celebration. To make a very long story short, it boiled down to 2 hospitals, Columbia and Florida Hospital. Now, something unfortunate was happening in the United States at this particular time. First of all, there was a movie in the theaters called The Road to Wellville. Has anyone here heard about The Road to Wellville? It was based on a book that some guy wrote about John Harvey Kellogg. It was not an accurate book. I saw the movie. I was embarrassed that anybody who might be coming to see this movie might think that this is an accurate portrayal of our Battle Creek Sanitarium and John Harvey Kellogg. I was ashamed that they would think that that's who we were. So you had this terrible, terrible movie depicting us in horrible ways. That was out. Then you had a well-intentioned, I'll give them the benefit of the doubt, we had a well-intentioned group of Seventh-day Adventists who were putting up billboards, signs, along the I-4 east-west corridor, which cuts right across our state from Daytona Beach, Florida, all the way over to Tampa, Florida. And on these big, huge road signs, they were saying 2 things. The Pope is the Antichrist, and Sunday is the mark of the beast. Sunday worship is the mark of the beast. So you have these 2 things happening, these billboards and road signs happening concurrently with this movie, Road to Wellville, happening while we are trying to make a bid to become Disney's hospital in Celebration, Florida. And what happened was the executives of Columbia, they bought a book, Road to Wellville, they bought a book, and they wrote a letter, and they sent a book and a letter to each of Disney's board members. And they said, these are the kinds of people that you're thinking about getting into business with. So you might better think twice. Well, since we've been in Florida for 100 years and in Orlando with our health work and have a very good reputation, God has blessed us. He's blessed all of our hospitals. I'm proud of our hospital in Sydney, the health work that's happening here. God has blessed us. So what Disney did was they sent one of their executives over to our executive team, and this executive said, we want to know what Florida Hospital's vision, we want to know what the Seventh-day Adventist vision is for healthcare in the 21st century is, and we want you to tell us without using John Harvey Kellogg or Ellen G. White. And I think it was really a blessing that they forced that upon us. So our executive team went back, started reading the Bible, because we've been leaning so many years on these giants who'd come before us. Hadn't done the thinking for ourselves. We had done some thinking, but we're really relying on our pioneers and the health message that they started 100 years previously, 130 years previously. So our team started reading the Bible to come up with a biblical foundation for our philosophy of healthcare. They started with the creation story, and they stopped at the creation story, because they found within the first 3 chapters of Genesis the whole biblical foundation for the Seventh-day Adventist health message. In the creation story, you find choice, rest, environment, activity, trust in God, outlook, relationships, and nutrition. You find it all right there. And so we put together a term called creation health, which is about creating health. And it has a preventative approach when it comes to health care. So we invited the representative from Disney to come back to Florida Hospital. His name was Mr. Stern. And so our team started sharing with him the creation health story. Of the 8 principles, if you were to take a guess of which one impressed him the most, and I know you don't know, but it's just fun to have people guess, which one do you think caught his attention of the 8? I've heard it. It was rest. And when we talk about rest, we talk about physical rest, mental rest, and we talk about spiritual rest. And as we started sharing rest with him, I say we, it wasn't me, I wasn't on the team at that time, but Des Cummings was, and you know who he is. As we were sharing that with him, and we got to rest, he lit up and got happy. As it turns out, Mr. Stern was raised a Jew. And as we started talking about the Sabbath, he couldn't hold back from sharing his favorite Sabbath memories growing up in his home with his family. And there's a real connection. And he understood our vision of prevention and how in order to be well, we're not just talking about the absence of disease, we're talking about whole person health. You have to be healthy spiritually, mentally, physically, relationally to be healthy. He captured that vision. To make a long story short, he went back to the Disney board and said, I don't know about anybody else that we're looking at, but the Seventh-day Adventists, that's the hospital we need to have as our hospital in Celebration, Florida. And we became their hospital in Celebration, Florida. Our hospital was built with the creation principles structurally in mind. When you look at our architecture, the creation principles are there. When patients come in for treatment at Celebration Health, they receive a process that involves these 8 principles as they begin treatment, during their treatment, and after the treatment. It was 2 years ago, I'm not sure it is right now because I've not checked. I had a friend who was an administrator there tell me it was the most successful, profitable hospital in the United States when you look at percentage of revenue, not volume, okay? And I think it's because God is blessing his plan. God is blessing a group of people who are trying to reach out and impact, influence other people's lives with his original plan of living life to the fullest. In fact, it's become a destination hospital, and we have people flying in from Europe and other continents just to receive treatment at Celebration Health, Florida Hospital. It's amazing. God blesses. And that's how the creation health philosophy came into being. So it's been around since the mid-90s. But as an outreach seminar for you to use in your churches and for us to use in our churches, it's only been around for about 2 years. That seminar was done about 2 years ago, 3 years ago. So I'm going to give you a quick overview of these 8 principles, and then we're going to finish our time for just a few minutes with choice, because all of this has something to do with choice, which I think you'll see as we come down to the end. So let's get into it. The 8 glimpses of creation health. We're going to talk about choice, so I'm not going to spend time on that. Rest. 30 to 40% of the people in America sleep less than 6 hours a night, and it's really a bad situation because if they miss 2 hours, say from 10 p.m. to even 6 a.m., if they miss 2 hours of sleep in that time frame, their immune system takes a 50% drop in its effectiveness, and that drop lasts for 30 days. So we have people who are getting sick and staying sick because they're not getting their sleep, at least in my country, and their immune system's taking the heavy toll. The other thing when it comes to rest, and I won't be talking about rest here this time, is when you don't get your sleep, your hormones get out of balance. To make this really simple, 2 things happen. Ghrelin goes really high. Ghrelin is the hormone that makes you feel hungry. When you don't get your sleep, ghrelin skyrockets. The hormone that makes you feel full is leptin, and when you don't get your sleep, leptin plummets. So if you've ever missed a significant amount of sleep on any one night, maybe you found the next day you were hungry all the time and nothing you ate made you feel full. You just ate and ate and ate and ate. It was because your system was flooded with ghrelin, and leptin, there wasn't enough to kick in to say, hey, you've had enough, stop eating. So what we're finding is, well, one of our executives out in Colorado, she was getting 4.5 hours of sleep a night. She was morbidly obese, 100 pounds overweight. She heard our presentation on rest. She decided she was going to do whatever it took to get 7 to 8 hours of sleep a night. We were back there a year later. She had talked to our team when we had been there previously. She came back to our team when we were there a year later, and she was saying hello and all those cordial, pleasantries. And she said, you don't recognize me, do you? And of course we wouldn't, because you see so many people, it's hard, right? As it turns out, she was 100 pounds thinner. One reason why we didn't recognize her. And the only thing she had done to lose her weight was get 7 to 8 hours of sleep a night. That's it. And when she did that, ghrelin and leptin balanced and harmonized. So she no longer overate, and when she had had enough, leptin kicked in and let her know she'd had enough. And just by eating until she was full, she lost 100 pounds in 12 months. We're actually in the process of filming her story so we can share it with others. So rest is one of the key principles of creation health. But we talk about spiritual rest and physical rest. The other principle is environment. Adam and Eve had a beautiful environment, not so anymore with us. One of our government agencies in America says that we Americans spend 90% of our time inside, and that our inside air is up to 500 times more polluted than the outside air, 200 to 400% times more polluted. And the reason why is we have all these carpets and synthetic fibers and pesticides and cleaners and stuff like that in our homes. So people are actually living in an environment in their houses that is stealing away their health. But you know how you can fix this? And I'm not talking on environment while I'm here either, but I'll give you, you can do this immediately when you get home. If you want to start purifying your house, your office space, it's very, very, very simple. NASA did research and published it about 4 years ago. You take 1 6-inch living green plant for every 100 square feet of your house, and it'll purify your the air inside your home. So 1 living green plant, 6-inch, so it doesn't have to be big, 1 6-inch live green plant for every 100 square feet in your house. Say you have a 1,000 square foot home. I don't know what that would be in meters, I'm sorry. You'll have to figure that out. But so in my case, it'd be like, 10 plants for a house that size. So it doesn't take much. Something you can begin doing right now that'll make an immediate difference in your wellness. Let's go on. So not only do I have environment, we have activity. It's estimated that in the United States, 250,000 people die a year simply because they're not active. Now, when you add in the poor diet, that bumps up to 400,000 deaths. But factoring out diet, is 250,000 people die a year simply because they're not active. There was a study done with Miriam Nelson. She took women, they replicated it with men, but she did it with women. Women strength trained twice a week for a year. That's it. And this was little stuff. It wasn't Arnold Schwarzenegger bodybuilding weight training. It was simple weightlifting exercises. At the end of the year, these ladies who were in their 40s and 50s and 60s, their bodies were up to 20 years more youthful in appearance because their muscles now were strong and supple. Their bones had gained density back. And they were actually stronger now than they were in their 20s and 30s. By simply doing weightlifting twice a week, very, very modest weightlifting, they turned back the clock. And the same result was true for men as well. We're not going to talk about activity this time, maybe next time if I get a chance to come back. Trust in God. We are talking about this Sunday morning. I think some of the research is going to blow your mind because it did mine. It would not make sense necessarily to a rational mind, but to see how God has built the mind to impact the body with regards to a spiritual connection to Him, it's just amazing stuff. They have found that having trust in God lengthens your lifespan on average by 7 years. If you're an African American, it lengthens your lifespan by an average of 14 years. And there are reasons why. Interpersonal relationships. This has become a disease in America. People are isolated. 1 in 4 people you pass on our streets don't have any friends. And they're finding that if you are lonely and isolated, it increases your risk of premature death by up to 500%. Relationships are hugely important. And one of the I'm not talking about relationships while I'm here. One of the reasons why this is the case is because when you're isolated and lonely, you hurt. And your life is filled with a lot of pain. So what you do is you try to do things to numb that pain. And unfortunately, whether it's workaholism or alcoholism, those types of habits create disease and they end your life sooner than it should. So that's why that statistic is the way it is. So after we have interpersonal relationships, we have another component of creation health, which is outlook. And I'm going to cover this in depth on Monday. I hope you're still here on Monday. Outlook to me is the most important of the 8 principles. And I cannot wait to share it on Monday. You do not want to miss this presentation on outlook, as you see the mind-body connection that just will show you how powerful this is right here, our mind, our brains. The Bible says we are as we think. Just a quick stat. If you are a pessimist, you've just increased your chances of early death by 50%. If you're an optimist, you've just increased your chances of living, or you've just decreased your chances of early death by 50%. If you're an optimist, you've decreased your chances of early death by 50%. We're going to go into great detail in that on Monday. Nutrition, the 8th principle, which is an important principle. I think it's the least important principle of these 8. If we had the time to go through each one of these, I think you might see at least why I believe that. Whether or not you would agree with me, you'd see why I believe that. Ed Stanley said, those who think they have no time for healthy eating will sooner or later have to make time for illness. The fact of the matter is, when it comes to wellness, if we don't do what it takes to be well right now, we're going to have to do what it takes to become well again at some point in the future. One way or the other, we're going to put the time and energy in to maintaining health or regaining health. When it comes to nutrition, there are some fascinating things. World Health Organization says almost 3 million people a year could be saved if they ate adequate amounts of fruits and vegetables. 20% of cancer is prevented by consuming just 5 servings of fruit and vegetables daily. And it can reduce the risk of stroke by 26% just eating fruits and vegetables. This is a fascinating thing when you look at how nutrition does impact the body. And the cruciferous vegetables, stuff like cabbage and broccoli and spinach and asparagus, those vegetables reduce all these cancers, prostate, colon, lung cancer, skin cancer. I want to get to a study. Do I have it in here? No, There was a study done in Singapore. They took women who smoked, and Singapore, I understand, though I've not been there, is a fairly polluted city. So these women were living in this polluted city, and they smoked, so that's 2 strikes against them. And they wanted to see what impact, if any, that eating cruciferous vegetables might have on their health with regards to lung cancer. So they put them on whatever their cruciferous vegetables are over there. I don't know what broccoli and cauliflower is to the women in Singapore, but they fed them those types of vegetables. At the end of their study, they found that by simply having these women eat those types of vegetables, they reduced their risk, and they were in a polluted city and they smoked. Still, they reduced their risk of lung cancer by 69%, if you can believe it. Because those vegetables, God created those vegetables to be the detoxifiers of the body. So eat them. Cleanse yourself. Clean yourself out. It'll clean out a lot of the toxins. That's all I have to say about nutrition. We're not talking about that while I'm here either. What I want to talk about now, though, is choice. Actually, after we take this poll. How many years do you think this Creation Health lifestyle, this Seventh Adventist lifestyle, how many extra years does it add to your life? Third 7? Used to be 7. I have 10, and I've heard Des say just recently they've now upped it to 11 years. And it's just not quantity years, it's quality years. The last thing you want when you come to the end of life, if you're not healthy and things aren't going well for you, you don't want quantity years at that point. You kind of want it to be over. But if you can be healthy and strong and have a purpose and energetic, then that can delay that end of life scenario, right? And so now it's quality years of life. And probably the only thing you'll have to deal with at that point would be like what my dad is dealing with right now. He told me when I was in New York State just a few months ago, he told me, he said, Lynell, he said, he said, I look at the newspaper, and he said, most of my friends I went to school with, they've died. He said, I don't have any friends, except for the friends he has at church, and that's fine. But at that time in life, for those who don't live this lifestyle, you find yourself maybe having fewer and fewer of your friends that you have grown up to love and to cherish, but you have the opportunity to make new friends and new relationships. But these are quality years of life, not quantity, and that's the point I wanted to make. So that's the overview of Creation Health. We're going to wrap these next 15 minutes up with choice. I have thrown a lot of information at you, I know you know, and that has been done on purpose, because I have some significant questions I want to ask you before we're done here. But I'm hoping this will have broken you down a little bit in your thinking to get you to the point where you'll be ready to answer the questions I have for you. So let's talk about choice as we come into the end part of this presentation. Choice is the first step toward health. I actually think Outlook could also be called the first step toward health. But taking responsibility and making a choice does not have to be a big choice. It can be something as simple as, this lady is actually modeling it perfectly. You can choose to have a certain kind of smile that when you smile it, creates a cascade of happy hormones in your body, creates actually a happy effect in your body. So the choice to be happy involves many choices, but can be a simple choice that you could practice within the next few minutes when you're not self-conscious and feel weird about it. It can be smiling what they call a Duchenne smile. There are two types of smiles. You have the fake photographer smile when they say, cheese. Then you have the real smile, and the difference between the cheese smile and the real smile, and I'm self-conscious now and am embarrassed, but the difference is when you have the fake cheese smile, you're just using these muscles right here. You can turn it on, turn it off. The real smile activates these muscles around the eyes. And physiologically, when you choose to smile, or you think of a memory, or you think of a promise that puts a smile on your face, there's a cascade effect physiologically that has a positive impact on your wellness because of the hormones that just simply smiling triggers. So if you want to be well, you don't know where to start, the first place you can start is with your face. And smile a few more times during the day, and it'll have a positive impact. But choice is the first step when it comes to living a life of health. There's more involved, as we'll see. We've heard a lot of talk through the years about willpower, and my favorite speaker when it came to the will was Maury Bindon, and I really dearly, dearly, dearly miss him, his speaking when it comes to that. But when it comes to our will, what directs our will is our choice. It's not mysterious, it's making a choice. And it's important because the choices we make shape what we become, and they determine where we will end up. They determine our destiny. So your choices right now are making you who you are, and they've gotten you to where you are in your life. Now, there are some benefits to being in control and having choice. In fact, there are some researchers in Florida who wanted to see what, if any, effect choice would have on longevity. So they went to a facility that took care of the elderly, and they divided it up into two groups of people. On one side, they had a group of people that they just gave them breakfast, whatever the facility wanted to give them. They showed them a movie during the week on the night that the facility wanted to do it, and they showed whatever movie they wanted. And they had the nurse go and pick out a plant for the room, and the nurse was in charge of putting that plant in the sunshine and giving that plant water. The other group, they told them, listen, we want you to tell us what you want for breakfast, and you tell us the night before what you want. They said, we're going to have movies on Wednesday or Thursday night, and these are your choices. You tell us which night you want to watch the movie, and you tell us which movie you want to watch of the choices we're giving you to watch. And they said, here are some plants. You go get your plant. You make sure you put it in the sunshine every day, and you make sure you give it water as is needed. At the end of 18 months, what they found was the group that was not given choice, that was not given control, many more of them had died versus the group that had been given control and had been given choice. And it was simply the independent factors in the death rate. The independent factor was choice and control versus not having choice and control. And I think there are forces in this world that are doing all that they can to make you feel like you have no control over your life. We're going to talk about this on Monday in Outlook. And try to make you feel like you don't have any choices. And that's not true. It is a good thing to be in control. It is a good thing to have choice. That's why our Creator in heaven designed us with choice and with the ability to be in charge and in control of our life, and He wants you to be, and you need to be. And you can be starting right now, before we're even over this morning. Hugely important, having control and having choice. It empowers us. Blessings of having choice and control make you happier, make you healthier, and you'll live longer, just to name 3. Now let's talk about the frontal lobe, and I think at this point we're going to get into your outline with some notes that I want you to fill in, some blanks. The power of choice, so you know, is located in the frontal lobe. That's the first blank in your outline. Frontal lobe is the seat of your choice-making abilities. What takes place in the frontal lobe, it governs your will, your judgment, your reasoning, the social norms, what you think is appropriate or inappropriate, and your long-term planning. All of that happens right here in the frontal lobe area. Now I'm going to show you, cat lovers are not going to like this very much. The frontal lobe takes up, so I left the cats out, but I'm going to tell you. The frontal lobe in these different species takes up, in dogs, 7% of the total brain volume. In chimpanzees, it's 17%. You can see where I am here, you can fill it in. And in humans, it takes up 33 to 38% of the total brain volume. Now in cats, sadly, it's 3%. I love cats, we've had a couple cats, but they're not on the scale. They would never make, and they would never, Mensa, I don't know what Mensa is over here. They would never be geniuses. They would never be your Albert Einsteins of the world. They just wouldn't, they don't have what it takes. It's just a little tiny smart brain. But what does that say to you that God created us with a frontal lobe that's over 1/3 of our brain volume? Highly, highly intelligent creatures we are, despite what anyone has said to you or me. We're very smart, very brilliant, very powerful. Now, with that in mind, this quote from Joe Thomas sets up a very real truth, which we're going to fill in our blank. Anything less than a conscious commitment to the important is an unconscious commitment to the unimportant. Let that sink in for a minute. So what are we saying? What we're saying is this: doing nothing is also a choice. In your outline, doing nothing is also a choice. You might think you're not going to do anything. Well, just by deciding not to do anything, you've just done something. Lastly, here, good choices taken to extremes create poor outcomes. Good choices taken to extremes create poor outcomes. It's one thing we see happen all the time. People get, they're not balanced. They get either in this side of the ditch on the road or they go to this side. It's very hard to stay in the middle, and that's where we want to be. All right, what do I have next here? Yes, let's talk about strengthening the frontal lobe. You might want to know, okay, if this is so important, what can we do to strengthen it? Well, there's some very easy things you can do. Number one, we need to know the brain operates on glucose. You get glucose from you get it from carbohydrates, whether it's simple or complex. We want to focus on complex carbohydrates. So you want to eat healthy carbohydrates, oatmeal, strawberries. You know what the lifestyle teaches. You know when it comes to nutrition what you should be eating. We're looking at complex carbohydrates. I'm very, very concerned, and actually research is coming out about these no-carb diets or low-carb diets and these high-protein diets. Not healthy for you, especially not for the brain. Your brain needs to have complex carbohydrates if it's going to function optimally. So eat some. Don't be afraid don't buy into this no-carb nonsense, and that's what it is. Listening to music. Listening to music, this topic right here, I'm convinced we're going to be arguing about it in our church until the very day Jesus Christ comes. Okay? I'm 45 years old. I've heard about this all my life. So I'm going to say, listen to inspiring music. And I'm not going to tell you what that music is. And I'm not going to let you to tell me what that is for me. All right? Let's use my wife as an example. And I don't want to embarrass her, and I might, and I'm sorry, but you've heard this before. Everybody loves your music, honey, including me. I have a colleague at work. who listening to Jennifer's music would not be her first choice. And we love her, and we're close to her, and she watches our son from time to time, and she's a lovely human being. But for her, she would have to choose a different type of music in order to be uplifted. Now, that may be difficult for some people in here to understand, but for her, it's her truth. So we need not to be telling people that they can't listen to that music or that music or that music, like there are Seventh-day Adventist traveling preachers who are telling people what to listen to and not to listen to. That needs to stop. The Holy Spirit's in charge, and the question you have to ask yourself, does this have a positive impact on my life? Does this have an uplifting impact on my life? Does this bring me closer to Jesus Christ or push me farther away? The pull-push thing we kind of heard about this morning in the previous lecture. Understand what I'm saying? I know this creates an argument with me just saying what I'm saying, but I'm just putting it out there. What's uplifting for you might not be uplifting for somebody else. But in order to strengthen and maximize this frontal lobe, you need to be listening to uplifting, inspiring music. And don't force your music on somebody else. My dad, my goodness, when I was a young kid and he was putting his sermons together, because he's a retired pastor, I'd hear him outside in his study. He actually had his study in the garage. And he loved listening to the Donna Klein organ music. Do you remember Donna Klein? Yes. He'd have those Donna Klein eight tracks, and he'd be listening to that music for 4, 5, 6 hours a day because I just jazzed him when it came to writing his sermons. I have to tell you, and I confess, I've never listened to a Donna Klein 8-track tape while I've been writing one of my sermons. Dad and I have some differences in music, but I think you get the point, and that's all I'm going to say on that. Uplifting music will strengthen your frontal lobe. Of the things that can weaken your lobe, I've chosen things that we typically don't talk about in the church. Inactivity, junk food like highly refined sugar and fat that's added, inadequate sleep or rest. See, we typically talk about you need to stop smoking, and you need to stop drinking, and you need to stop eating certain kinds of food. Well, yeah, but let's preach to the choir here. We can stop doing these things. We don't talk about these other things because we like Little Debbie's and other things like that, and I do too. In moderation, things are okay, but if you want to strengthen your frontal lobe, you need to cut out a lot of the junk food. You need to get your rest. Adventists, I don't think, are getting their rest because they're so responsible and have such a high work ethic, and there's so much work to be done for the kingdom. They're working themselves, burning both ends of the candle. But those are some things that weaken the frontal lobe. Let's go on to the next slide. If you want to strengthen your frontal lobe so you make better choices, here are some things you can do. Think positive thoughts. Thinking positive thoughts actually activates a certain part of the brain that makes you well mentally. They actually have used magnetic imaging tests to show this. By thinking positive thoughts, you activate your brain, the centers that make you healthier mentally. You can do that. Choosing to think positive thoughts is a choice you're either going to make or you're not going to make. Physical activity strengthens the mind because it increases oxygen to the brain, which the brain needs. Mental activity, whether it's crossword puzzles, whether it's learning to drive on the wrong side of the road like I've been doing all week, strengthens your mind. It's scaring my wife to death, so it's not been much good for her. Massage. You think massage is a luxury, but it's not. When you go get a massage, guess what happens? Immediately, blood flow is increased in your body, and the way the brain's wired up, it says, give it to me. So it prioritizes the blood flow in your body to go first into the brain. So if you want to strengthen your brain, a massage is a great, great way to start doing it because it'll flood your brain with blood. Amen. Thank you, sir. Sunshine. Get sunshine. Go out today. Get plenty of sunshine this weekend because sunshine releases serotonin, which is called the happy hormone. It'll put you in a good mood instantly. Spend 10, 15 minutes in the sun. Eat good carbohydrates, listen to good music. We've talked about that. Some tips on making choices. Okay, I can't read it, so I'm going to come down here. Stay focused on what the real choice is. All sorts of things, including yourself, will try to distract you from what the topic is, from the conversation is, from the choice you need to make. Don't be distracted. Stay focused. You stay focused when you strengthen your frontal lobe. 2, here's one you can remember. You can walk away with this right now. Practice the HALT method. Do not make big decisions when you're hungry, angry, lonely, or tired. If you have a huge decision to make and you're hungry, angry, lonely, or tired, halt and put it off for a little while until you get these balance points back. and focus on making one decision at a time. All right, if you're going to change, we're winding this down, choose to change, pray for wisdom, take inventory of where you are, and choose one thing you can start changing right now, this day, this week, which I want you to do here, right now. Now, sometimes you're going to get off course. I was knocked off course this year, going back to my vision. I might talk more about this on Sunday, because I'm running out of time. I have basically 10 minutes, 5 minutes. I had my retina detach last May at a camp meeting. And I was on the road. God led me to a very gifted surgeon. They put me in that same day. They actually lasered it back into place. Unfortunately, a few months later, I was one of the 10% of people who, as a result of that surgery, have macular scarring. And it's the body's way of trying to heal a wound. It grows a scar, right? If you cut yourself. Well, it doesn't help the eye when that happens. What that macular scarring does is it grabs the retina and it twists it and wrinkles it. And it got to the point where I couldn't even read, in our country, the big E on the eye chart. Could not read it. So the surgeon had to go in there in October and peel off 3 layers of scar tissue from my macula. And I've had double vision ever since October. And although now God has blessed and I'm actually seeing 20/25 when I do have my glasses on, I'm getting new glasses, by the way, because my vision's so messed up I can't really, see well. But although I can see 20/25 with my glasses, see at distance, there's still distortion there. And I'm going to be living with that, I think, the rest of my life. Although I have another year and a half to go before my eye completely heals. Now, life happens just out of the blue. You don't expect it to happen, right? And so I had been pretty healthy, was in a good place, but I was told you can't do anything this year, there's a 2011, that's going to stimulate that eye, no strenuous activity of any kind, because if you regrow scar tissue, the physician told me, said you're going to lose the vision altogether in that eye because there's nothing more we can do because of the trauma it's had. So I've not been able to do anything this year. So guess what? The weight comes on, the pounds go on, and there's nothing you can do about it unless you really severely restrict your diet and try to manage things that way, which you can. I didn't, but you can. And now I've just gotten the all clear just a few weeks ago. So now I'm starting to go on that journey of, pants are a little bit loose, and I'm excited about that. Almost had to do another notch in my belt, and things are going back to where they need to be with me, and I'm happy about that. So when it comes to health, no matter where you are this morning, I just want to share, as from one wounded soldier to another, if you're not where you want to be, don't worry about it. It's okay. Because when it comes to health, it's about progress, not perfection anyway. It's about progress, not perfection. And as long as you're making progress, you're doing okay, and you should be pleased and satisfied. It's about progress, not perfection, when it comes to the health journey. I think where many people are, they're in this learned helplessness. I want to tell this story, ask you a question, then wrap this up with a prayer. A few years ago, there was a scientific study done on dogs. It's a horrible study, and I hope they can't do it again. They took dogs, they put them in wire cages and electrified those cages, put wires on the bottom. They closed the door, they applied electricity, and it shocked the dog's feet. They tried to bust their way through the door, and they couldn't get out. And so they ended up going to the corner, curling up and lying down, and just continued getting shocked. This happened for days. Days later, they put the dogs in the cage, left the door open, applied the current. Dog started getting shocked, saw that the door was open. He went and curled up in the corner and got shocked. He didn't even try to get out of the cage. And he didn't try to get out of the cage because he had been programmed to believe that no matter what he had done previously to try to get out of his situation to a better life, nothing worked. And so he learned that he was helpless. And there was a shift. And it became landmark research. There was a shift where before his motivation, this dog's power, this dog's sense of well-being came from within. They call it intrinsic. Where before it had come from within, it had shifted when he beat his head against that door trying to escape the pain in his life. It shifted from intrinsic to extrinsic, where he now believed at the end of the study that it was his circumstances and situation that dictated the quality of his life. There was nothing he could do to change his situation. And I think that we're living on a planet where there's a force at play that's trying to force you and brainwash you and me and shape our behavior so that we get to the point where we believe there's nothing we can do from within, that we are totally controlled and shaped by what happens from without. And nothing can be further from the truth. It's a lie. The door is open if you want to go through it. People say all the time, well, you can make a choice. The choice is yours. Yes, the choice is yours and the choice is mine. But the problem with that is this. Before you can make the choice and make a difference and make a change, you have to believe that you can. Those dogs saw the door was open. They had a choice to go through, but guess what? They didn't believe they could go through. God has made it possible for you to have free will, to have power of choice, that there isn't anything that you cannot do. There isn't any situation that you can't endure, get through, make better, breathe meaning into it. There can always be a healing, there can always be a cure. Even if the body's not cured, there can be emotional healing, there can be a spiritual cure. You know what I'm saying? There's always a choice for us to make. But there are forces in this world that don't want you to believe that. So what choices have you been putting off because you believed that you couldn't? Because all through your life you've been raised, you've been taught, you've heard that you're no good, you don't have what it takes, you're lacking in some way. You might have gone through a situation and you beat your head on the brick wall trying to get out of it and nothing worked, and you've become helpless. Are you ready for that to be over in your life? Are you ready to make progress? Are you ready to claim the promise that Jesus Christ gave to you, saying that He's come to give you life and give it to you abundantly? Are you ready this morning to believe that that promise is for you right now? Amen. Then I have some questions as we bring this to a close. I want to ask you right now, how satisfied are you with your life? Is there some part of your life that you'd like to see improved or changed or that needs to be changed? Which direction are your choices taking you? If nothing changes in your life right now and you keep going down that path you're on, where are you going to end up? Because you're going to end up there if you don't do something about it. You are what you choose. Like it or not, I don't like it, but that's the way it works. But there's an opportunity there. If you are what you choose, and you don't like what you are, you can make a different choice to become something different. Because God has given you that grace and that power to do that. So reflect on what changes you want to make. This is a great place to do it. This spiritual weekend, it's going to be a high for us. It's going to be a wonderful, inspiring event. Begin thinking about it this weekend. What choices, what changes do you want to make? And know that you can make them. You can make them. Jesus Christ has given you that privilege. You can do it. And He brought me here this weekend to tell you to believe that you can do it. You've been blessed with the power of choice. His desire for you is very simple. He wants you to prosper. He said, "Beloved, I pray that you may prosper in all things and be in health, just as your soul prospers." So I want to encourage you with this today. You are only one choice away this minute from living a better life. That's how easy it is. You're only one choice away right now from living life to the fullest. So how satisfied are you with your life? What are some hopes and dreams that you have? What are some areas in your life that need to be healed? What relationships need to be addressed? A relationship with a parent, with a child, with a friend, with a sibling. We taught this to a group of public high school teachers in Orlando, Florida, and as a result of this, there was a teacher there in her early 30s. She said, "I've never liked my sister, but after hearing the Creation Health way of living, I called her up and we're starting to develop a relationship." What relationship might need healing? It might be a relationship with God. And maybe that's why you're here this weekend. Maybe it's your marriage. I don't know. But God knows, and He's prompting you right now in your heart and mind with a better way of life and a pathway to get there. Let's pray. Father in heaven, we thank you so much for your grace. We thank you so much for you being our Father. It's the most thrilling relationship we have ever experienced, is to have you in our lives, present with us daily. Lord, we talked about a lot of stuff here this morning. And every person in this room represents a story. Everybody here has stories of concern, sadness, regret. We pray through your grace, Lord, you bring healing to every one of those areas of our lives, to their lives. I pray, Lord, right now in the name of Jesus Christ, the Holy Spirit will prompt everyone here right now that sometime in these next few hours, you will lead us to a point in our life where we need to make a choice and can make a choice to begin living a better life in that area, whether it's a relationship with someone or with you, or regarding our health, or whatever it might be. Lord, thank you for the awesome gift of creating us to be so fearfully and wonderfully made. We love you and we entrust our souls into your loving care. Please go with us and guide us through the rest of this weekend, that we'll look back on it and see this is where our lives were transformed. In your name we pray. Amen. Thank you.